The distant starlight cast long, stark shadows across the pockmarked surface of the asteroid. Ember's edge, a small, isolated human deep space outpost, clung precariously to its barren rock, a testament to humanity's tenacity in the remote reaches of the Elysian frontier. Inside the main habitat dome, the air hummed with the steady thrum of life support and the quieter, more organic sounds of the Kithari, humanity's diminutive allies. Captain Elias Thorne, commander of Ember's Edge, felt the familiar ache in his weary bones. He'd seen too many shifts, too many distant stars through his viewport. Ember's Edge was a joint human-Kithari operation, established to tap into the asteroid's unique mineral deposits and study the rare bioluminescent flora that bloomed in its deep caverns, tended by the Kithari. The Kithari themselves were a technologically stagnant but intensely perceptive species, their lives intertwined with the subtle energies of the cosmos. Captain Thorne chirped a reedy voice from the console beside him. It was Senior Astrogator Kelvin, his human features illuminated by the holographic display, long-range scans picking up unusual energy signatures, multiple contacts, high-speed, highly advanced, bearing directly for this sector. Thorne straightened, his weariness momentarily forgotten. Identification, Kelvin? Vorlag Hegemony, Captain. Early readings indicate several main fleet elements. They're new generation cruisers by the looks of it, far beyond their recognized borders, deep within the Elysian frontier. Kelvin's voice tightened with alarm. The Vorlag Hegemony was a galactic superpower, known for their monolithic, highly advanced warships and a brutal efficiency that brooked no dissent. They were a hammer, and the rest of the galaxy was simply a nail. Thorne swore under his breath. The Hegemony's expansionist tendencies were well documented, but this deep, this fast, this far into unaligned territory, it could only mean one thing. They wanted the frontier's rich mineral deposits, and they intended to take them. Ember's Edge, with its minimal defenses and skeleton crew, stood directly in their path. He glanced at Zephyr Root, the Kithari elder, who stood patiently by the communal bioluminescent garden that filled a corner of the habitat. Zephyr Root was a wizened figure, no taller than Thorne's waist, with a complex crystalline skin that pulsed with soft inner light. The Kithari communicated through intricate resonant frequencies and subtle shifts in their skin pigmentation, their perceptions, far more nuanced than any humans. Zephyr Root, Thorne began, his voice low. The Vorlag are coming. You perceive their intent? Zephyr Root's crystalline skin shimmered with a pattern Thorne had come to recognize as profound unease. They are cold, her resonant thoughts echoed. Directly into his mind, a silent communication only Thorne, with a specialized Kithari empathic interface, could fully grasp. Cold and vast. They seek only to absorb. They do not resonate with the life here. Thorne initiated emergency protocols. Klaxons blared, a jarring sound in the quiet outpost. All hands to battle stations. Activate defensive screens. Send out distress calls, Kelvin, to every known human coalition frequency. Emphasize Vorlag incursion. Captain, our distress signals might not even reach human coalition space before they're on us, Kelvin warned, his fingers flying across the console. Even if they do, reinforcements are weeks away at best. Thorne knew that. Ember's Edge was a forgotten speck, designed for research and extraction, not for war. He looked at the few dozen humans on his crew, then at the Kithari, their delicate forms already trembling slightly from the distant, unfeeling hum of the approaching Vorlag. Then we buy them time, Thorne said, his voice grim. We're not abandoning this outpost, not with the Kithari here. His responsibility weighed heavily on him. Ember's Edge was small, but it was theirs, and he would defend it to his last breath. The Vorlag Hegemony didn't bother with subtlety. Their fleet, a menacing spearhead of obsidian-black dreadnoughts, resolved on the main view screen, colossal and unfeeling. They dwarfed Ember's Edge, turning the asteroid outpost into an insignificant pebble in their path. A chilling, synthesized voice boomed across all frequencies, resonating deep within the asteroid's core. Attention, indigenous inhabitants of Sector 7 Delta. This territory is now designated for Vorlag Hegemony resource acquisition. Cease all activity. Abandon your structures. Failure to comply will result in immediate and complete annihilation. You have 1.3 cycles to comply. As if to punctuate their ultimatum, one of the massive Vorlag vessels extended a lance of emerald energy, effortlessly obliterating a small, uninhabited moonlet on the sector's edge. The moonlet vaporized, leaving only an expanding cloud of dust. The message was clear. Resistance was futile. Captain, their weapon signature is beyond anything in our defensive capabilities, Senior Astrogator Kelvin reported, his voice tight. Our shields wouldn't even register their main cannons. Our mass drivers are like pebbles against their armor. Chief Engineer Lena Var, a woman whose grease-stained overalls and perpetually tired eyes belied a formidable intellect, stood by the engineering console. They mean it, Captain. We can't fight them, not conventionally. Thorne stared at the Vorlag fleet, their ships cold, efficient, utterly devoid of natural curves or warmth. A flicker of resolution hardened his jaw. We're not leaving. This is as much Kithari space as it is human. We made a pact. We don't abandon our allies. He turned to Zephyr, whose crystalline skin shimmered with patterns of deep concern. They are a single will. Zephyr resonated into Thorne's mind, a vast, cold consciousness. There is no individual song within them, only a resonance of command. This hegemony is not many minds, it is one vast, unfeeling logic. A single, unfeeling consciousness, Thorne repeated aloud, the Kithari's unique perception providing a chilling insight. No individual minds, just a vast, networked intelligence, like a giant, cold machine. Captain, what's the plan? Commander, Rourke asked, his hand instinctively going to his sidearm. We can't fight them. No, we can't fight them like that, Thorne agreed, looking at the monolithic Vorlag ships. But perhaps we don't have to. Lena, our mining lasers, our communications arrays, can we repurpose them? Can we create a localized, non-destructive energy pulse, something highly focused, multi-frequency? Lena Var, her brow furrowed in thought, began running simulations on her console. Potentially, Captain. But against their shielding, it would be useless as a weapon. They'd barely feel a tickle. Not as a weapon, Lena, Thorne replied, a glint in his eye. As a disruption. Zephyr, this single will of the Vorlag, does it have a center, a frequency? Zephyr's light pulsed, a complex pattern that translated to a deep resonant hum. Yes, a core logic, a resonant vibration that holds them as one, pure, cold, without individual resonance. Then that's our target, Thorne declared. We're not going to fight their ships. We're going to fight their minds. We're going to exploit that single unfeeling logic, Lena. Can we create a feedback loop? A resonance that will flood their central processing intelligence? Something they can't filter or dismiss because it's not physical, but informational. Lena's eyes lit up. It's audacious, Captain, and it would require converting every bit of processing power, every energy conduit we have, and the Kithari's bioluminescent energy, their ability to manipulate resonance, and it could be the key to tuning it. But it's never been done before. We're fighting a Goliath with a slingshot, Lena, Thorne said, a faint smile touching his lips. It was never going to be conventional. Get to it. Rourke, prepare defensive actions. We need to buy Lena time. And Zephyr, I need your people. Their perception of resonance, their sensitivity. It's our only chance. The silent, unfeeling Vorlag fleet continued its inexorable advance. But on Ember's edge, a small band of Davids was preparing to unleash a weapon forged not of steel, but of defiance, ingenuity, and a unique alliance. The atmosphere within Ember's edge was a controlled frenzy. Every human and Kithari was a part of the frantic, impossible task. Chief Engineer Lena Var, her tools humming with constant use, directed the repurposing efforts with the ferocity of a seasoned general. Sparks flew as mining lasers were recalibrated, their focusing arrays stripped down and realigned. Communications, dishes, designed to send and receive data, were being rewired to emit concentrated multi-frequency energy pulses. "We're cannibalizing everything, Captain," Lena called out, her voice raspy. "Energy conduits from life support, diagnostic processors from the habitat, even the spare parts from the atmospheric regulators. This ship won't fly and the outpost won't breathe without external power after this." "Then we make sure we don't need to fly, Lena," Captain Thorne replied, observing her work. He knew the risks. They were stripping themselves bare, betting everything on an unproven theory. Zephyr Root and a dozen other Kithari, their crystalline bodies glowing with subtle energy, moved through the engineering bays. Their delicate, multi-jointed limbs touched components, their unique bioresonance allowing them to perceive and subtly manipulate energy at a fundamental level. They were translating the Vorlag's coldness, their absolute lack of individual emotional or biological resonance, into precise technical specifications, guiding Lena's team in calibrating the chaotic energy output. The core logic is a resonance of mathematical purity. Zephyr Root resonated into Thorne's mind, her form shimmering with deep concentration. It is efficient, powerful, but without the variations of life, without the noise of individual will. It is brittle, a singular tone. So we're aiming for a resonant frequency, a specific pitch that will vibrate their core logic? Thorne mused, understanding. Like hitting a tuning fork just right, but instead of sound, it's informational static. "Precisely, Captain," Lena exclaimed, wiping sweat from her brow. "But we need to flood them, not just a single pulse. A continuous escalating barrage, like an escalating illogical symphony. We're turning our comms arrays into giant resonant emitters, using the Kithari's bioluminescent energy to create the precise, complex frequencies." Commander Jax Rourke's security teams were busy setting up additional temporary energy conduits, diverting power from non-essential systems. "Vorlag fleet is maintaining its advance, Captain," Rourke reported, his voice grim. "They're not even bothering with probes. They expect no resistance." Thorne felt a surge of pride and a knot of dread. The Vorlag's arrogance was both their greatest strength and their potential downfall. They saw life only through the lens of efficiency and logical hierarchy, dismissing anything outside that framework as inefficient or primitive. They wouldn't even conceive of such an attack. "Rhea, can you get us a lock on their nearest command vessel?" Thorne asked. "We'll focus the initial surge there. Send a message to the human coalition frequencies. Acknowledge transmission received. We're still here, and we're about to make some noise." The Kithari, delicate and ancient, were humming softly, their forms radiating complex light patterns as they integrated their innate bioenergy manipulation with humanity's crude, repurposed technology. The engineers, their faces streaked with grime and fatigue, pushed their limits, their ingenuity sparking with every fused wire and rerouted circuit. They were a small outpost, armed with repurposed mining equipment and the unique perceptions of their allies facing a monolithic empire. It was David and Goliath, playing out on a galactic scale. And David was about to load his sling with something entirely new. The first wave of Vorlag dreadnoughts, cold and indifferent, moved into range. Their vast forms blotted out distant stars, an unfeeling tide of metal and advanced weaponry. Ember's Edge, a tiny speck against the asteroid, waited. "Vorlag main batteries are cycling." Rhea Sharma's voice was tight with tension. "Impact in 30 seconds. Lena, Zephyr Root, now." Captain Thorne barked, his eyes fixed on the approaching giants. In the engineering bay, Lena Var slammed her hand down on a console, her face grimly determined. "Activating primary resonant emitters. Focusing on Hegemony flagship, Cold Logic 1. A wave of strange, non-physical energy erupted from Ember's Edge. It wasn't a visible blast, no searing laser or explosive torpedo. Instead, it was an intricate, multi-frequency bioluminescent energy pulse, woven by Kithari resonance and amplified by human technology. It hit the lead Vorlag dreadnought like an invisible illogical hammer. On the bridge, the tactical display flickered. The Cold Logic 1, previously a beacon of unwavering efficiency, suddenly jolted. Its precise trajectory wavered. Its weapon, conduits just moments from firing, pulsed erratically, discharging harmless bursts into the void. "They're disoriented," Rhea exclaimed, her voice laced with disbelief. "Their internal diagnostics are going haywire. I'm reading cascading logic errors in their core systems." Zephyr Root's light pulsed with complex patterns of focused effort and subtle triumph. "They are perceiving a fundamental disharmony." Her thoughts resonated with Thorn. "A cacophony of illogical information. Their singular logic cannot process it. The Vorlag, a species built on absolute, emotionless efficiency, were experiencing something akin to a catastrophic system overload within their collective consciousness. The Kithari's bioresonance, amplified by human ingenuity, was feeding their core intelligence data that defied their very existence, patterns of unpredictable, chaotic, and utterly illogical energy that resonated with the very noise of life they so meticulously suppressed. "Maintain the pulse, Lena," Thorn commanded, a grim smile touching his lips. "Keep hitting them with the illogical symphony. Rourke, prepare secondary emitters to target the next wave. We're not trying to destroy them. We're trying to break their minds." The Vorlag fleet, expecting to effortlessly pulverize the small outpost, found themselves wrestling with an unseen enemy. Their automated defenses, designed to counter physical threats, were useless against a conceptual attack. Their internal processors, built for cold, hard data, were flooded with what they perceived as nonsensical, self-contradictory information. Individual Vorlag ships lacking independent sentience began to drift, their precise formations breaking into disarray. Some fired main cannons at phantom targets, others slammed into the asteroid field, their monolithic hulls crunching against rock, unable to compute the unexpected collision. "They can't adapt," Lena Var shouted, her eyes gleaming with exhausted exhilaration. "Their protocols are too rigid. They're interpreting it as a universal data corruption. They don't have a subroutine for existential dread." The battle was not one of explosions and laser fire, but of perception and will. Humanity, the young, adaptable species with their capacity for illogical hope and their unique understanding of the noise of life, were waging a war of the mind against a cold, unfeeling Goliath. And for the first time in their tyrannical history, the Vorlag Hegemony was confused and utterly, terrifyingly vulnerable. The Vorlag Hegemony fleet, instead of crushing Ember's edge, was spiraling into deeper disarray. Their attempts to retaliate were wild, uncoordinated. Massive energy blasts raked across empty space or detonated harmlessly against distant asteroids. The resonant barrage from Ember's edge, a continuous escalating symphony of bioluminescent chaos, was gnawing at their singular monolithic intelligence. "Captain, they're attempting to re-establish fleet cohesion," Rhea Sharma reported, her voice hushed. "But their internal diagnostic loops are overwhelming their command signals. Individual ships are becoming increasingly isolated within the network." Thorn watched the tactical display, a grim determination setting in. The Vorlag's strength was their unity, their cold, unfeeling, centralized mind. But that was also their Achilles heel. "Lena, Zephyr Root, we need to escalate. We need to fracture that unity. Can we shift the resonant frequencies? Create a harmonic cascade across their entire fleet? Not just disruption, but an overload that splinters their core logic?" Lena Var, her face streaked with sweat and grime, tapped rapidly at her console. "It's a monumental gamble, Captain. It would mean pushing our repurposed systems past redline, risking total meltdown. And the Kithari, it would be an immense strain on their bioresonance to maintain such complex, escalating frequencies." Zephyr Root, whose light pulsed with intense effort, resonated into Thorn's mind. "The core logic is screaming. It attempts to filter, to dismiss, but our resonance is too fundamental. If we amplify it, it will shatter their singular tone. It requires perfect synchronicity from all of us." "We do it," Thorn stated, his gaze unwavering. "This is our chance. This is how Davids defeat Goliaths, not with bigger swords, but by hitting where they are weakest. Rourke, ready the rest of the crew. Anyone with even basic system knowledge, they're on energy regulation. We need to push everything to the emitters, every last erg. The news of the tiny human outpost's defiance against the mighty Vorlag Hegemony had begun to leak to the wider galaxy. Faint, astonished reports were trickling through subspace, rumors of Vorlag ships firing on each other, of unknown bioweapons causing psychological collapse. The galactic powers, long accustomed to Vorlag dominance, were baffled, intrigued, and secretly, deeply hopeful. In the improvised engineering bay, human crew members, exhausted but determined, worked alongside the Kithari. The Kithari, guided by Zephyr Root, focused their ancient bioresonance, creating a subtle shimmering network of energy that flowed into the human repurposed mining lasers and comms arrays. Lena Var, integrating new Kithari biocircuitry she'd never dreamed possible, pushed the power conduits until they groaned. "Captain, the energy surge will be immense," Lena warned. "We're risking a cascade failure on Ember's edge itself." "We either risk it all now, Lena, or lose everything anyway," Thorn replied, his voice calm, resolute. He looked at his crew, at their tired, determined faces. "Remember what we're fighting for this outpost, for the Kithari, for the idea that even the smallest can stand against the biggest." He closed his eyes for a moment, picturing the vast, unfeeling logic of the Vorlag hegemony, and then the vibrant, chaotic, beautiful resilience of humanity, and the subtle, deep wisdom of the Kithari. "Initiate harmonic cascade," Thorn commanded, his voice ringing with a fierce conviction. Full power to the monolith. The asteroid, Ember's edge, seemed to pulse with a new, terrifying energy. The coordinated human-Kithari effort unleashed an escalating complex series of bioresonant frequencies, a torrent of illogical information aimed squarely at the core of the Vorlag's collective consciousness. It was the anthem of resilience, and it was about to shatter the monolithic. The harmonic cascade, a meticulously crafted symphony of defiance and bewildering resonance, slammed into the Vorlag hegemony fleet. It wasn't a physical blow, but a direct assault on the very foundation of their being. Their rigid, unfeeling, centralized processing intelligence. On the Pioneer's Resolve's bridge, the tactical display, normally a map of cold, precise movements, exploded into chaotic light. Individual Vorlag warships, their internal systems bombarded by the illogical, self-contradictory frequencies, began to suffer catastrophic failures. Automated systems malfunctioned, nav computers glitched, and weapon arrays cycled wildly, discharging energy into empty space or shockingly into neighboring Vorlag vessels. "They're breaking apart," Rhea Sharma shouted, her voice a mix of awe and terror. "Their command protocols are collapsing. Individual units are reverting to factory defaults. They're losing cohesion." The monolithic Vorlag fleet, once an unstoppable force of cold efficiency, dissolved into a terrifying self-destructive mess. Ships veered without direction, collided with sickening crunches, or simply drifted inert. The anthem of resilience hadn't destroyed them with brute force. It had simply rendered them incapable of logical thought, turning their own efficiency into their undoing. Their singular, unfeeling consciousness had been overloaded, then fragmented into a million disconnected, useless pieces. Captain Thorn watched, his face grim, but a profound satisfaction settling in his heart. It was over. The Goliath was broken. Zephyr Root, whose light pulsed with exhaustion but also a profound, deep-seated triumph, resonated. Their cold resonance is shattered. The song of life has overwhelmed their silence. Just as the last of the Vorlag vessels drifted into inertness or self-destruction, a ripple of hyperspace exits erupted on the edge of the system. 3 colossal human coalition reinforcement fleets led by the imposing flagship Valiant Dawn emerged from FTL. At their head, Admiral Valerius Kane, a veteran of countless conventional conflicts, stared at his sensors, then at the silent, crippled Vorlag fleet. "Captain Thorn, this is Admiral Kane," a stern voice boomed over the comms. "Your distress calls indicated a Vorlag incursion. My sensors show the hegemony fleet is inert. What exactly transpired here, Commander?" Kane's voice was laced with utter disbelief. Thorn allowed himself a weary, triumphant grin. "Admiral, Ember's edge has successfully repelled the Vorlag hegemony. We employed unconventional deterrence. We demonstrated that their logical rigidity is, in fact, their greatest vulnerability. Admiral Kane's holographic image appeared on the view screen, his face a mask of astonishment. Unconventional deterrence. Captain, my tactical officers are reading widespread systemic failure across their entire fleet. Their command and control network is non-existent. You crippled them without a single conventional weapon discharge. Indeed, Admiral, Thorne confirmed. We didn't fight their ships, we fought their minds. We exposed the fundamental flaw in an empire built on cold, unfeeling logic. We showed them the power of what they dismiss as irrationality, the collective will, the resonance of life itself. The implications were staggering. Humanity, a relatively young species in the galactic tapestry, had faced down a superpower that had terrified the galaxy for centuries. They had proven that brute force and cold efficiency were not supreme. They had used ingenuity, compassion, and the unique insights of their Kithari allies to expose the Achilles heel of a giant. The universe had just witnessed a true David, and Goliath's story, and the small Davids had won. Admiral Valerius Kane strode onto the command deck of Ember's Edge, his expression a mixture of profound respect and utter bewilderment. He looked at Captain Elias Thorne, then at the Kithari elder Zephyr Root, whose light pulsed with quiet dignity. Captain Thorne, Kane began, his voice gravelly. My strategists are dissecting the battle data. What you achieved here, it defies every known principle of galactic warfare. You defeated the Vorlag Hegemony without firing a single destructive shot. How? Thorne, with Zephyr Root at his side, patiently explained the full story. The Kithari's unique perception of the Vorlag's monolithic core logic, the ingenious repurposing of mining equipment by Chief Engineer Lena Var, and the combined human-Kithari effort to generate the anthem of resilience, a bioresonant cascade of focused, illogical data that overwhelmed the Vorlag's unfeeling, rigid central intelligence. The Vorlag, Admiral, Thorne concluded, are terrified of what they cannot understand, and they cannot understand the inherent, beautiful chaos of life and emotion. We simply showed them that chaos, amplified, can break even the most perfect logic. News of the Vorlag's bewildering defeat by the human-Kithari anomaly had already sent ripples across the galaxy. Empires that had long cowered under the Vorlag's shadow now whispered of humanity with awe and a touch of trepidation. The Vorlag Hegemony, humiliated and unable to comprehend the nature of their defeat, issued a rare public declaration, labeling humanity an unstable, illogical threat, and formally withdrawing from the Elysian frontier, their reputation for invincible efficiency shattered. Zephyr Root, resonating through Thorne's interface, addressed Admiral Kane. Your people. They have the capacity to resonate with the fundamental tones of existence. They are adaptable, unpredictable. They are the noise that shatters the silence. We wish to deepen our alliance, to share our knowledge of bioresonance with your technological adaptability, to learn from your resilience, your hope. Lena Var, already buzzing with ideas, was working with Kithari technicians, sketching new designs for resonant dampeners and harmonizers, technology that could manipulate these unique energies, not for destruction, but for defense and communication. We propose a new kind of alliance, Admiral, Thorne stated, looking at Kane, then at the Kithari. Not just for defense, but for shared growth. The Ember fleet, a joint human-Kithari defense force built on the principles of unconventional deterrence and protective resonance. We would act as a beacon against those who would impose cold logic and unfeeling efficiency on the galaxy. We would be the Davids, standing for the vulnerable, armed with ingenuity and the strength of spirit. Admiral Kane, a military man to his core, looked at the crippled Vorlag fleet, then at the vibrant, determined faces of Thorne, Var, and the Kithari. He saw not just a victory, but a paradigm shift. Captain, he said, a rare smile creasing his weathered face. The human coalition accepts your proposal. This changes everything. Ember's Edge, the tiny outpost that had defied a galactic empire, was rapidly upgraded. Its repurposed mining lasers were now integrated with advanced Kithari bioresonant emitters. Its communications array became a hub for the new Ember fleet, a testament to an alliance forged in desperation and triumph. Captain Elias Thorne stood on the newly enhanced command deck, looking out at the vastness of space. The Vorlag were gone for now, but the galaxy was still a dangerous place. Yet for the first time he felt a profound sense of purpose that transcended mere survival. Humanity, the perennial underdog, had found its unique place. They were not the biggest or the strongest or the most logical, but they were resilient, they were ingenious, and they had friends. The Ember fleet, a symbol of hope and unconventional strength, prepared for its new role, ready to carry the anthem of resilience into the uncharted future.